Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. We're really excited to talk to you guys all about all things AI. I feel like right now it's like the only thing that we're seeing and hearing about. And so Sercante is thrilled that we're able to talk a little real talk about how we're approaching AI. A little housekeeping before we go through intros. So you'll see that you have an ability to post comments and questions on the right side of your screen. We'll also have some interactive polls throughout. So feel free to respond to those when they pop up. We will prompt you when they do. And again, if you have any questions, please post them and we will address all of those at the end. But I'm Lauren Noonan. I lead growth and alliances here at Sercante. I've been working in the MarTech agency space my whole career and have been at the forefront of a lot of the new AI capabilities across the Salesforce tech stack, but also non-Salesforce technologies as well. Deborah, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Ingalls, and I lead our change enablement practice at Sercante. So dealing with the people side of transformations is one of the things I'm passionate about. I think you can imagine AI is having a lot of impact on people. So we'll be talking about that today. Thanks, Matthew, to you.
Thanks, Deborah. Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew George, and I'm an engagement manager here at Sercante. Around about 15 years experience in marketing, and I'd say about 10 years in MarTech. So I'm happy to go through this with all of you today. So yeah.
Awesome. From an agenda perspective, we have a pretty packed agenda, but our goal is to really help you understand how you can unpack the AI opportunity and start taking some actionable steps within your organization to framing AI capabilities that you can adopt that make sense for your organization, your current pain points and opportunities, rather than just like a blanket statement. So we'll talk a little bit about vision. We'll talk about some of the AI capabilities, just level setting, and then we'll walk you through our framework. So we'll talk about how we identify roadblocks and opportunities within customer conversations that we're having. We'll frame up some real world examples to give you some idea and start those ideas flowing. And then we'll walk you through our approach. We have a very methodical approach to how we break down identifying capabilities that make the most sense and framing those in an actionable roadmap that will deliver value quickly. And then at the end, we'll wrap up with some resources that we've put together to help you guys post this webinar. So before we begin, you will see a poll pop up that you're able to interact with right in the webinar itself, but we wanted to level set and just get a baseline understanding from all of you guys, because it feels like on a day-to-day basis, we are all having conversations with customers who are saying things to us like, goodness, I am under so much pressure to do something with AI. I don't even know where to start. So respond in the poll if you have been asked to own something AI related at your organization. I'll give you guys a couple minutes just to find that and start interacting with that. I'm seeing 8 total votes out of 20 folks. So we have a couple more to get in. All right, well, while you guys are all filling that in, we're seeing kind of across the board, interestingly enough, in what you guys are seeing, about 36% of you have said definitively, yes, I've been asked to lead the charge. And about half of you have said that you've been sort of, which I'm kind of interested about, like how are you sort of, but probably supporting some larger AI initiatives. And then less than 15% of you have said, no, you're not owning or aware of any AI initiatives internally. So a bit of a mixed bag, but I would say over 85% of you on this call are either leading the charge or supporting an AI initiative or two internally. And then the last level setting question, would love to kind of get your honest view on how you're feeling about it. Do you feel a little bit lost? Do you feel unsure of where to begin with AI? And some of the options that we've given are like, yes, I'm totally lost. Maybe I kind of know what I'm doing, but I have a ton of questions. Or no, I'm 100% confident, but I still want to learn everything there is. And most of you guys are answering in the maybe camp. So 70% of you are kind of feeling confident, kind of feeling a lot of questions, which makes total sense for why you're all here with us today. So without further ado, we wanted to start with some of the basics because it feels like there are so many AI capabilities. There's new articles out there on a day-to-day basis. So would love to hear from you in the chat. If you were to guess, how many different classifications do you think exist for AI today? I'm seeing it could be an infinite amount. Well, while you're noodling on it, I'll just cut to the chase. There's only 3, believe it or not. And 2 of these have actually been around for a while. And the first one has been around for quite a while. So there's 3 big camps of AI. The first is predictive. So this is the one that has been around for, probably 15 plus years. And this one's been utilized. These are what your LLMs will fall into. So leveraging data and insights and all the different interactions and breadcrumbs that we all leave behind for brands to interpret, to predict propensity. So that could be, do you as an individual have a high propensity to purchase a particular product or service, or are you highly likely to engage with the brand from a marketing perspective? The second one is a newer one, so more generative. So ChatGPT definitely falls into this camp. So leveraging AI to generate responses, images, content. I just used this past weekend to design what I should do with the dead spot on the side of my house. So uploaded an image. It gave me some really beautiful ideas that maybe one day I will do something with. And then the last one is probably the newest, and that's this whole agentic era. And for whatever reason, this feels like the one that we are all hearing about so often, which is really the automation of those human tasks. So ability for AI to respond like a human being would to things like FAQs, helping to self-service. They can respond to inquiries, they can categorize, they can take an action. And this is the one that seems to be at the forefront of everyone's mind. But we talk about all 3 of these throughout because they're all equally important in building an AI roadmap within an organization. And in some cases, starting with predictive or generative is a first foray to then unlock some of the larger, more strategic agentic use cases. So I talked a little bit about these. So LLMs are those large language models. So those are those like really deep learning algorithms that are able to predict propensity. They look at patterns, those breadcrumbs that I mentioned. So ability to create content, chatbots, propensity models, those are all examples of LLMs today. Generative AI is, spoiler alert, a form of an LLM. So we have all on this call probably tried Gemini or ChatGPT, maybe even using it on a day-to-day basis, but being able to return those responses to inquiries, creating images, creating content. And then the last one is natural language processing. So this is a more robust one where historically you've seen those predictive or propensity models fall into. This is your more traditional machine learning type of AI. And then we wanted to give you guys just a couple like why, because I think as you're all navigating these conversations internally, a lot of the times it really has to come back to the why. Like, why is AI important for your organization? Why is this AI capability something that you guys should think about? How is it going to drive, incremental business value? So the framing really is centered on the why. So these are just a couple stats that we've found are really interesting to a lot of our customers here at Sercante. But you're really finding that AI, it boosts marketing ROI when you're utilizing those predictive analytics to help drive personalization or predict um, engagement or predict, an ability to purchase. That's really kind of falling into this first metric. We're also seeing that Salesforce users that are leveraging AI are seeing an increase in customer satisfaction. And that makes a ton of sense, right? We're able to kind of cut through the nonsense and match a communication or a product or a service or a next action to a customer or a prospect in a way that's more easily scaled than we've seen historically. And then the last one from this that I'll kind of pick up on, it's actually been around for a while. You've probably seen this stat, but I think it's still very relevant, is we're all consumers of brands. We all interact with brands in a positive and negative way every day. And I think we can all agree that if you have one of those like ick moments with a brand where it doesn't feel like they know you or they haven't listened to how you've interacted with their website or their marketing material, you're probably feeling a little bit less likely to engage with that brand, all else being equal. So just a couple stats of like, why should you be thinking about AI now? And the one that I won't put up here, but just reacting to how you all answered the poll. So over 85% of you guys on this call are thinking about AI in some capacity. And that aligns with the conversations that Sercante is having on a day-to-day basis with our customers. So the last stat is if you're not doing something with AI today, you're probably missing the boat and you're probably falling behind your peers. And that kind of feeling, that pressure, is probably a big reason why you're all here. So as we get further and further into the content of the webinar, we're hoping that you're able to take away some tactical actions that you can bring back to your organization to hopefully move the needle quickly on AI. The last thing, and we'll talk about this more, Matthew will talk about some of the use cases, but at a really high level, there are the same three kind of pillars of capabilities that we're seeing across sales, service, and marketing. So from a sales perspective, how can you optimize your sales organization? How can you give your sellers the tools that they need to know which accounts or contacts they should be reaching out to on a day-to-day basis? How can you give them insight into what the next best conversation should be, whether it's a product or a service, or maybe the model has predicted that they could be at risk for attrition? From a service perspective, this one was, I think, the earliest use cases, some of the easier use cases. We all have a lot of questions, and whether we're calling call centers or trying to send emails or get in touch with an actual human being, this one's ripe for agentic and AI use cases. So helping to deflect from a case perspective, answer questions, really optimize your contact center operations, which are typically pretty high cost organizations. And then on the marketing side, marketing at scale, personalization at scale has always been hard. And the ability to answer what's the thing that I should talk to this customer or this account about next has been really difficult to scale in the past. So the ability to build those segments, scale those segments, build those propensity models, write your content, create your campaign briefs, all of those are things that are ripe for AI. So just a couple like initial noodling things. And then the last one, and we kind of joke a little bit about it, but like, I'm hoping that you guys can walk away with feeling a little less fearful and a little more optimistic about AI. It's not necessarily coming for everyone's jobs. It's not here to replace us as a human being, but it can really like just think about all the admin manual things that we all do on a day-to-day basis that take up a good chunk of all of our time, if we could reduce even a fraction of that, what on your to-do list is strategic that you could focus on, that would help you kind of use your brain in a way that is probably exciting to you, but adds a lot more value to your organization. So I'm hoping we can reframe it as an opportunity for all of us to think about how can we insert more strategic conversations, events, into our day-to-day and try to reduce just some of the noise and manual stuff that we all deal with every day. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it over to Matthew, who's going to talk a little bit more about identifying, or to Deborah, sorry, who's going to talk about Lord, how we think about unpacking these roadmaps.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren finished with a slide that had a big elephant on it. And it made me think of, it's a perfect analogy. There is a metaphor that we used to say a long time ago. I'm not sure people still say it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But basically, that's a metaphor for how do we take this big task and take it one step at a time. So what we're going to be walking you through in these next few sets of slides is how we do take that one step at a time. How do we think about this? And a really important question that I want to cover with you, and I think some of you have already voted on this, but I'm going to talk about first, what are the things that prevent us from having a successful AI implementation? One of the first is data silos or unreliable data even. Last year, there's some statistics that show that of all of the AI implementations that were done, very few made it out of a pilot stage, and one of the biggest reasons was data issues. So that's having disparate data across various sources. That's data that's unreliable. Maybe it's old data. So data silos is a huge one. Another big one is lack of trust. We've all struggled, as Lauren said, with different AI experiences. And we're like, wait a minute, I don't think that was correct. I don't trust what I'm being told. So how do we ensure that the AI that we use and our customers are working with and our teams are working with can be reliable and accurate? We also have some skill set shortages. People are afraid. And here's where we started talking about the people side. They're like, I don't know how to use this. I don't know if I want to use it. What they don't realize is they've actually been using AI for years. It's just the velocity that it has expanded over the last couple of years that's intimidating. When you go into Google and you're doing a Google search, that's AI. When you buy something online and then they make recommendations to you of what you like, that's AI. So people are intimidated. The issue is we need to remove that intimidation. We need to skill people on how do I best use this AI? How do I even use my human interaction to determine if this is exactly what I'm looking for? We have a lack of use cases. This is the wild, wild west right now. Lots of people are trying different things in AI. What are some applicable use cases for my business, for my organization? We're going to be giving you some. Matthew's going to be giving you some a little later on in this conversation. But there is a lack of use cases. There will be more and more clearly over the next few years. Here's a big one, people. Change resistance. We all resist change. I've been in the business of change for over 25 years, and I still resist change. So you're going to have people that resist it for a variety of reasons. One, they may feel like they don't have the right skill set. They feel intimidated by it. They feel like it may cause them to lose their job. So all of those things have to be addressed from a people perspective. And then the ROI, is it really going to be worth what I invest in this? Am I going to get out of it what I've put into it? So I know that some of you have already answered the poll, but if you want to go to the next slide, we do have a poll up that says, what do you think is the biggest roadblock to AI in your organization? If anybody else wants to vote, I know we have 15. We might want to get some more votes out of this. But after seeing that slide that I just showed you, you may have some different perspectives. I find it interesting. Absolutely no one thinks that they will not experience the return on their investment. We do see a lot of change resistance, but I think the biggest one we're seeing right now, starting to change, is a lack of trust in the data itself, the lack of trust that it's going to work the way we designed it to, or give the kind of experience we want it to. Data silos is a big one. So I'd have to say, watching these numbers, probably the biggest two we see is data silos and lack of trust. But I'm sure you all can agree, we're going to experience some of those other areas as well. Those are just the biggest roadblocks for you. So thank you for participating in that poll. So what are your opportunities for AI? And we're going to start to give you use cases. But as you're starting to look at it, you're looking at what others are doing. You're looking at what you need to do within your organization. We have a couple of slides now that will help you ask those questions that might help you really define what AI should be, what you should be addressing and looking at as you design your AI solution. So what tasks are your teams doing that are repetitive? They're manual currently, but boy, it sure would be great to get those off of people's plates. What current processes slow productivity? So let's say you've got a Sales Cloud implementation and you've got salespeople out there who may refuse to use their opportunities because there's too many fields to populate. There's too many steps to do. What steps could you actually automate for them that would take away that slowdown in their productivity? Same thing with Service Cloud. This is what I have to do to open a case or to take the notes on my case or find solutions on my case. Look at those particular situations and say, what can we leverage AI to help that human interaction? You notice I'm not saying replace the human interaction, but help the human interaction. Where are there inefficiencies? We all have inefficiencies. So it's a matter of looking at your current processes and going, where can I improve this process and make it more efficient? And are there new capabilities you'd like to add to your tech stack? Very important question for you to understand how far you can take AI, and maybe that tech stack includes your data. What can we do to get that data cleaned up to improve the process all the way around? And then we look at the next slide where we say, okay, so we've looked at some possible areas I need to investigate, but also as you're doing this, look at where the potential benefits are. How can we improve productivity? How can we reduce human error? Look at those patterns and trends of where you find bad entry, bad data, struggles with your customers using perhaps a chatbot. What are those areas where we're seeing certain patterns and trends when people abandon the process, and make sure that we address those? We obviously want to free up team members for more rewarding work. We're not just saying we're replacing you, but if they're spending 50% of their time changing people's passwords, this could be a great opportunity for them to do other things that are more rewarding, those tasks that definitely require human intervention. I know that for a fact, there's a lot of us when we've gone into some AI tools and they've made recommendations, or you're not getting the answer you need and you get frustrated and you abandon the process, or you start to type agent, agent, agent. What we want to do is investigate those and say, okay, that team member could be freed up to answer those things that absolutely our AI could not, and take them to that next level of service. And establish those repeatable processes. What this also does, in addition to making it easier for the users, is it makes more consistent and less prone to errors, as we've seen in the other bullets. So these are don't just look at the challenges, look at the benefits. You can achieve your full ROI on your investment. So now that we've talked about the possibilities, you've looked at the challenges, you've looked at the benefits, Matthew's going to share some real world examples of use cases to help start triggering that thought process for you.
Thanks very much, Deborah. Okay, cool. That was all fun stuff, both from Lauren and Deborah, but this is what gets me excited. This is the MarTech and how we're going to be using the AI, hopefully in the future and now. So these are just some use cases. There's obviously a lot of expansion that can be done here. You can tailor these for your organization. You can tailor them based on industry. There's loads of different ways to look at it. But I'd like to just walk through these 6 for now. So when we think of customer and self-service, that's a huge opportunity here when it comes to common use cases. So let's say you have a website, you want to self-serve a customer inquiring about an issue or a fault they found with a product. Now it's possible to enable that customer to have that first level support directly, independently, without having to communicate with a human. So let's say I have a product question about a dishwasher that I've purchased. You can go onto a website, you can ask those questions, and I'm immediately being self-served and gratified. And if not, there's more often or not the capability to push me through to level 2 or level 3 support, which just might be a human, right? And then if I think about things a little bit differently and look at employee onboarding and self-serve, a really good demo that I'd like to kind of walk through here would be a new employee starting. We've sent them all their onboarding paperwork and they're filling all that in. That could be in an agent, that could be in an interactive form. That's then triggering it into an agent which registers them in Salesforce. It makes their user account. It then pings them over into Slack, so they also have a Slack access as well. So we're really taking that burden away from that IT department, reducing the kind of technical abilities that we need to do, and we're freeing up that department to do other things by enabling that level of automation. And then looking at things like lead management and campaign optimization. So more often than not, there's the big debate between marketing qualified leads, sales accepted leads. We all know the ongoing debate. It's never going to end, right? But when we bring things in like AI, we can improve that level of handoff between sales and marketing. So a great example might be that marketing have captured a prospect, but we don't quite have enough information. We could use lead management to use AI to contact that prospect, get some more information, get some more qualification criteria before we lock that lead down and turn them into a marketing qualified lead to push off to the sales side. And if I move into campaign optimization, like Lauren alluded to a few slides before, marketing are now using AI on a daily basis, whether you're using an LLM and you're asking questions, whether you're using an agent, whether you're using next gen marketing, there's the capability to now go in and make those campaign briefs, to make those campaign KPI targets. It's there and lots of departments are already using it. And it's a great way to ensure that you're getting the right information and the right needs into your brief from day one, which obviously gives you more chance of success overall in the campaign. And then when I think about summaries and insights automation, the best way that my head kind of copes with this is if you're in Salesforce and you're looking at an account, if you could just have a button that you could click and it would generate a summary of how that account's doing year over year, performance, have they not booked something for a while? If you can generate that automated summary and have that insight and have AI give you that summary before you've stood there and have to go through the whole entire account and try and find that information yourself, it can really speed up efficiencies and give you that information at your fingertips. Another use case that we're seeing about items is that, let's say you have a calendar full of meetings that day. If you could use AI to tell you what those meetings are and what they're about and summarize those things and give you a head start without having to click into every single meeting, it's a great way that you can automate and use AI to give you those insights and capabilities moving forward. Next up, we have the sales coach and how we can help sales prioritize their days. So the sales coach is one of my favorite agents that I think is out there right now when it comes to Salesforce. There's really two sides to it, which I'm going to jump into in a minute, but sales coach can give you real-time feedback based on how you're doing in regards to account stage opportunities, regards to how you're doing with handling objections, how you're doing in regards to pitching your elevator pitch. The second part of this is really how a salesperson can use AI to narrow down where they should be spending their time each day. So Lauren mentioned the word propensity quite a couple of times. imagine you can go into a system and you can say, where should I start my day today? What account should I be looking at? What opportunities have I not looked at for a while? And you can have an agent tell you exactly where to go, where you should be spending your time, and ensure that you're getting, again, the best efficiencies that you can from your day moving forward. And lastly, looking at lead capture and form capture automation. Very similar to the lead management and the campaign optimization. This is probably leaning towards the marketing side. But let's say you are missing information from a lead capture perspective and you have the ability to go and find that information, whether that's using an agent to go and find that information and bring it back into your CRM system, or whether that's using an agent to go and crawl a website. There's several capabilities that you can consider in your organization to enhance capturing that information and ensuring that you have the right information at the right time. If we do next slide, please, Lauren. Okay, cool. So now we've looked at just some high-level use cases. I just want to kind of walk through some industry-based use cases and how they kind of differ. There are some overlap between some of the industries, but just some examples that we see on a regular basis. So many of the high-tech industries are looking at the churn prevention for their accounts. They're predicting the next best action. I really want to call this one out. This is not just a salesperson looking at this. This is anyone within an organization could be looking at this. If it's the executive leadership team, if it's the C-suite, if they can go in and say, okay, how are we doing right now? And they can see the accounts which we're preventing churn on due to AI. That again is a huge win for an organization. If we can increase the product usage, the actioning, the data that we're getting on accounts, we know we're going to be making better predictions and making better forecasts moving forward. And then lastly, an example for high tech is looking at sales qualification and content creation. So if we can offer the right content at the right time with the right message, myself as a former marketeer, I get how important that is. If we can do that on websites for high tech, whether that's in an email or website, and we can offer that experience using AI, it's a huge win, and there's a higher increase in the likelihood of that conversion happening. As I move into manufacturing, so manufacturing, we can look at things like asset lifecycle management and service prediction. We can look at automated appointment scheduling. So a big example here I can think is if you're a manufacturer and you have customers with warranties and you want those customers to come to your website and let's say, hey, I have an issue with my dishwasher. Okay, I'd like to schedule a service appointment, and I can go onto the website and do that without having to speak to a human. I'm a millennial. I love self-serving whenever I can. If I don't need to pick up the phone, that's amazing. So again, it's a win-win, right? So huge opportunity there. And then as I go into retail, I mentioned on a couple of slides before about management of issues and returns and items. Well, for retail, if you can have the ability to go online and say, hey, I actually want to return this product. Again, no need to speak to a human. You can jump online, you can self-serve, you can say, I need to send this back. But it's not just about what the end user is seeing, it's about what that does on the back end within that organization. We can automate all of those processes, all of those steps. That's, again, a huge win. And then looking at product propensity. So what products sell when product A sells? So for example, what add-on products can we do from a cross-sell perspective? How are we making those recommendations? Can we pass that through to marketing? Can we put that in emails? Can we add that to our website? Can we tell the sales team that Bob, who just bought product A, is likely to actually buy product C as well? So again, a huge opportunity there. And again, from a virtual personal shopper as well. If we go to the next slide. So just 3 more examples that we have here across different use cases by industry. So education and not-for-profit. So if we can engage with students, if we can automate people who are logging into LLM systems, if we can help with the administration process, you can imagine people signing up for dates on courses or virtual enrollments in courses. There's a huge administration component to that. Again, if we can automate it, pretty similar to what I mentioned just now about employee onboarding. If we can automate that process to get people enrolled in courses, that would be amazing. Again, fundraising, donor engagement, grant writing assistant. Again, this is, I think, is a great one. If you can train an LLM or you can train an agent to understand your business and you know the grant it's applying for, Again, this can give you a huge head start in producing that content and getting that foot in the door and getting maybe 60% to 80% of what you need to be able to submit that moving forward. And then as I move into media entertainment, we all know we probably have about 11 different subscriptions these days to different movie channels and to different TV subscriptions. And they're probably all using this already, right? They're looking at what we're doing in regards to our activity, and they're recommending how we can upsell our products and services to the next subscription package in their TV packages, right? So that data is there. And again, that's AI that's making those recommendations and probably sending us those emails to get us to move forward. We're moving up a tier. Again, as I move into entertainment, so we can pull data together here, something like Data Cloud. We can look at the tickets people are purchasing to go to events, and we can look at the ancillary purchases that they're making as well. Are they buying drinks when they're there? Are they buying add-on products? And we can package that all together from an entertainment perspective. And then as I move into financial services, how can we automate financial reports? We can obviously imagine whether it's fiscal reports, monthly reports, quarterly reports. If there's ways to automate these reports, there's a huge win there. And again, a huge time saving. Spinning into virtual financial advisors, and also additionally things like product recommendations based on propensity predictions. So lots of opportunities across several different industries right now. And then next up, I'd like to talk to you about some Salesforce agents on the next slide. So the items I shared with you prior to this point are all things that you can customize for your business, right? I'd like to just take a step back and say, okay, what can I do off the shelf? What pre-built agents can I consider bringing into my organization? So this is where Salesforce Agentforce comes in. Now, these are, like I said, pre-built agents. They're pre-built instructions. They're pre-built prompts that you can bring into your agent and you can activate in a short amount of time. Yes, there's possibility to customize these. Of course there is. But this is just the purpose of telling you what there is going to be pre-built out of the box. So right now, if I think of Service Cloud, there's things like case management and escalation, having agents for things like order inquiries, having agents if there's delivery issues. For example, where's my product? And you can have an agent answer that because it can look into the system. I noticed when Deborah did her poll just now, there was a question around trust. So when it comes to Agentforce, there's something called a trust layer. And having those trust layer capabilities within something like Salesforce is going to reinforce that the data that people are sharing with that agent is not being mistreated. It's securely handled. It's not sent to an LLM. It's only being used within the system. So it's, again, really important. And lastly, things like general FAQs. And then when I jump into the Sales Cloud side of things, the two big use cases we're seeing is an SDR. So that's a sales development rep. So using a sales development rep to answer those common questions, to send personalized emails to prospects and leads. So we know that an SDR agent is probably a lot quicker. We know it's way quicker than a human doing that level of account-based research and sending that outreach and sending that follow-up. So if we can use an SDR agent to have that outreach, they can answer common questions, they can schedule meetings with the human, they can have that level of handoff. And then also the sales coach, which I mentioned earlier. So there's really two sides to this. Whether you use the sales coach to give you feedback based on your specific accounts or your specific feedback of how you're doing with particular opportunities, or it can do role-based scenarios and playback. So how are you doing with the elevator pitch, etc. And then the last bucket is marketing. So again, former marketer, so I love using this stuff all the time. How can you use it to generate campaign briefs? How can we make more targeted audience segments? So that, again, that's a great use case for Data Cloud, how you can use Customer 360 to find that audience segment that you'd like to use, content generation, and then customer journeys. And now I'm going to pass it back to Lauren.
Awesome. From a roadmap perspective, so Matthew talked a lot about some of the use cases, and you guys are probably thinking, gosh, those are great ideas, but like, where do I start? And how do I know the ones that make the most sense for my organization? So there's 4 steps that we'll walk you through. And this is how we approach it with all of our customers. In fact, Deborah and I were on site with a customer last week, just going through this very thing with them on site. So We always start with the vision. So we understand whether it's sales, service, marketing, or all of the above, or a combination of it, really understanding today what are the pain points that the team is living with on a day-to-day basis. What's the implication of those pain points on those key stakeholders across the organization? And then what are the benefits of accelerating or fixing that pain point or reducing that gap? What would that deliver to the organization? So we really do define all of those elements from pain points, opportunities, and value metrics. And then we anchor that, like I had said, to the business value. So as we're building out the roadmap, our first phase of the where should you get started with is generally centered around about 3 use cases. So, and it's based on a matrix that we'll walk you through that will deliver the most value quickly to the team. And Deborah's going to talk to you a lot about the people. AI, people think, it's AI. We don't really necessarily need to be thinking about the people, but we vehemently disagree with that. If anything, we need to be thinking about the people even more than we ever have before in framing how we approach these sorts of technology transformations. Because to Deborah's point, what are those value add activities that the team could unlock by reducing some of these manual efforts, and how do we get the team on board, with that vision? And then the last piece is really documenting any dependencies. So do we need to rethink a process? Do we need to improve some of the data? Do we need to untrap data and integrate it into a broader tech stack? All of those are some common dependencies that we see, that you'll see threaded throughout our approach. So from a vision perspective, I kind of talked about this a little bit on the prior slide, but really documenting out what are those pain points that you guys are facing today across your organization. What is it? Why have you listed it? So what's the impact of it? And who is impacted? So documenting those pain points sometimes can be a cathartic, therapeutic first step to just unblocking the anxiety that you may feel about where do I go next? Because it allows you to see it on paper and start thinking about it more from the inverse of what are those opportunities to remediate some of those pain points. And for each one, we do encourage you, it might feel a little bit redundant, but talk about the what, the why, and the who for each one of those items. From a business value perspective, we talk about the what, the why, and the who, but what's the impact to the business on this? So we encourage you guys, as you have the list of all of those opportunities, throw them in an Excel document and have columns, and we'll walk you through what the columns should be. But for each item, think about high, medium, and low. What is the impact to your business? And we gave you some t-shirt size guides here. So something that's high value is typically a big revenue driving item, or it's a big data silo unlock across your organization. Medium is something, it could contribute to the goals. It could make the processes across the teams more streamlined. It may have a mild to medium impact on revenue. And then low, these are usually things that are generally quick wins that impact a team rather than many teams across the organization. There might be a little impact to revenue, but it's mostly process optimization, team productivity type items. And I'm going to pass it to Deborah to talk through the people side of this.
Thank you, Lauren. So as we're doing the spreadsheet that Lauren talked about, we also want to look at the people impacts. So we're recognizing the business value, and then we need to look at what level of impact and disruption to the people in your organization will you be experiencing. So high, so this is critical, right? Many roles are impacted, many processes will change, and roles may be redesigned. That doesn't mean eliminated. It's redesigned, letting people focus on the parts where human intervention is required. Medium, some roles are impacted, some processes will change, Roles might change slightly. And then your low impact is very few roles are impacted, minimal process changes, and no role restructuring will be needed. That would be a very simple thing like we're going to implement resetting your password automatically, things like that. So if we look at what kind of impacts those would have, if you've got those streamlined processes that are well defined and automated so that users can focus on the stuff where their experience and their expertise is very much needed. Reduce that busy work, which everybody would love to do across the board in all companies, having less manual tasks, and then reducing those silos of knowledge. So trusting the AI to do those redundant tasks and making sure our knowledge is universal with each other. So if we look at the next slide, what does that actually look like when we map those things out? So we've identified what we want to do. How do we really focus on what we should focus on initially as we build that roadmap? And there's 3 things to consider. The business impact, as Lauren discussed, the business value. If this capability is implemented, what value would it add to our organization? So you've got your high, medium, and low scores. And if you look across this grid, we also then have the people impact. So it may be something that has a really high business impact, a really big value for us, and yet has a medium level people impact. Then we've got the level of effort. Then what would it take to actually create this AI experience? So you look at the top where it says level of effort. Green means it's low. Red means it's high. So if we look at this, let's say that we were automating customer self-help. Great impact for our customers. So very good value from a business impact perspective, but a really low people impact. Actually, it's removing things from them. So it's a benefit. Whereas if you were going to layer in sales coaching on an opportunity, that is going to be a high level of effort. It's going to have a very high people impact, and it will also have a big business impact. And this is how you can help by visually laying this out to determine where do we focus our efforts as we build that roadmap. So I'm going to turn it back to Lauren to talk about the dependencies that should be considered.
Yeah, and the last column that we recommend you guys put in that Excel or whatever document that you're working off is the dependencies. So as Deborah had outlined, capturing the business value, the level of effort to implement, and the impact to the people are really 3 important levers to capture. But the final one in telling the story is understanding dependencies. So oftentimes the dependencies fall into these 3 buckets. So from a technology perspective, ask yourself, are you able to utilize technology that you already have, or do you have to buy a new technology to address this feature? What would it take to close this gap? Is it adding to an existing tech, optimizing how you're utilizing it, or like I had said, having to buy something net new? From a data perspective, ask yourself the question of, what data does AI need access to? Where does that live? If the technology feature that you've identified is something that you need your Salesforce users to have access, does that data live in a place where Salesforce can access it today? Is it already there? And then for those data elements that you identify, are there any data quality issues that we need to look at and address? And I don't say that so that you go down the crazy rabbit hole of like having to clean up all your data and clean your entire house before you can start, decorating the walls with AI. That's not the case. But you do need to be mindful of any data quality issues, because tackling those in more bite-sized chunks is a better approach than trying to fix everything all at once. Because spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about data quality probably until my kids go to college, maybe even beyond that. And then the last piece is around people and process. So understand, like, if you were to enable this new feature that you've put in this list, how many teams are impacted by it? Do you have to redesign an entire process? And really start framing it around what's the value to the team? How much time will this unlock? And what can they focus on instead? So documenting those dependencies, and then whether it's high, medium, or low from a dependency score, helps you identify and start building out your roadmap. And then the last piece really is around the success metrics. So document for each line item, how would you measure the success, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you launch a new feature and then you haven't set up the infrastructure to measure the incremental lift of that, and leadership asking you, we did that thing, did it work? And not having the answer. So really being mindful about, for a feature, what are 1 to 2 success metrics for each, so that you know that you're able to build a report or a dashboard to measure that effectiveness post go live and really tell the story back to your leadership. And this is important because, when you're able to show the success of these, first features, this helps to unlock the budget for the next round of features. So all of those things, and we're trying to show this in a 2-dimensional way. We joke a little bit about the matrix because as you're mapping everything out, you're going to find that they all kind of fall into one of these colors here. And so from a where do you start perspective, we often recommend that you start when the level of effort and the impact to people is lower from a process redesign perspective, and the impact to your business is typically higher. Those we often categorize as quick wins because they don't take a ton of time to implement. They're not going to be super disruptive across the organization, but they are going to add some value to those teams. And then the second phase, or mid-range, these are typically higher level of effort, but still high business impact. And then the later stage ones are typically higher level of effort, more dependencies that you have to kind of work through as a precursor to start, working on those items. So this helps you kind of rough it out. And going back to where do you begin with the first phase? We do generally recommend that you start with around 3 or so quick wins based on the list that you compile. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Matthew to round us out.
Thanks, Lauren. So yeah, as you start to think about a roadmap, it really has 3 different stages that we see for most of our clients. So the foundation, the elevate, and the excel. Now, you may already have a head start and you may already be above the foundation stage. That's something that you will know about your organization. But if you're thinking of the foundation stage, this is where you're going to think about your integrations, your knowledge, your task automation, and your reporting. Then we move on to the kind of 3 to 6 month stage. Again, you may already have the foundation one done. This is where you're going to look at the additional integrations, ongoing automations. You may start to think about your propensity model, and it's going to be an opportunity for you to enhance those automations that you had from the foundation stage, right? And then as you're moving into the 6 month plus stage, this is where you're going to think about enhancing the propensity model. How can you add in scoring? Is there additional tech stack considerations that you can bring in? What ongoing enhancements should I be considering? And then reporting and concierge insights, right? And then as we move on again to the next slide, this is really what you should be aiming for when it comes to your roadmap. So a roadmap should have the 3 to 5 quick win use cases that Lauren mentioned, but really you should be breaking out to each of these areas to ensure that you're covering each item. So who are the stakeholders on the project? Who's going to be impacted? What's the vision statement that you're trying to have on the roadmap? Like, what's the goal? What are you kind of aiming for? What capability placeholders should you have? This is where you're aiming for those 3 to 5. What pain points do you need to solve for a business? I would maybe also add in there the department or business or like what team that's kind of impacting from those pain points. Think about the priority matrix, and then think about the roadmap of phases, how you're going to get there and the different items. And then, as Lauren mentioned, the success metrics. So hopefully today you've taken all of those nuggets of information and you can go away and digest. but we would love to know if you've got any questions. So if you do have some questions, you can put them in the Q&A and we will be happy to answer them for you on this end of this webinar now. And we'd love to hear from you. And Lauren, if you can go forward to the next slide. Before everyone disappears today, I would like to we are going to answer your questions if you have any, but we'd love to encourage you all to download our AI Starter Pack. Here, you're going to come in and download the insights and information that we've compiled to date. We've launched over 50 agents thus far, and this starter pack is going to give you real-world examples. It's going to help you get inspiration from what we've done. You're going to hear about use cases that we've had with our customers, and hopefully it's going to enable you to have a much clearer roadmap in regards to adopting some of this technology. Additionally, I would like to encourage all of you to check out Thursday's AI session. So we're going to be hosting an AI workshop, building your roadmap for real impact. So this is happening this Thursday, 12 to 3 o'clock Eastern. Again, if you want to check it out, scan the QR code and it will take you to the page for you to sign up. Here, you can really learn about how to take that roadmap that you've learned how to make today and have the next impact and success for your organization. So just checking the Q&A. Have we had any questions come in? What are some of the ways that we can help build trust in an organization around AI? So I would happily take that one. So at Secante, we have developed something called an AI Action Force. And it's a cross-department team where we all get together on a monthly basis and we talk about the goals that we have for AI in an organization and ensure that everyone is aligned and transparent talking about how we're using AI and how we work as a team to put together our policies and recommendations of how we're using AI. AI trust isn't something that happens overnight, but hopefully with the right information and with the right assessment and the right team, it's something that you can build into your organization over time. And I think having a joint team and resource is a great way to go. Deborah, what would you add to that?
And from a people perspective, I mean, it's just communicating clearly, being transparent, talking about successes, talking about, assuring people. Sometimes there will be some org realignments, but what that means to them. And it's just going to, as Matthew said, it will take some time for people to build that trust. But being as transparent as possible is always the best route and the best choice to take. Because your people will appreciate it. And as long as they feel assured, guess what? This is for my benefit, not to try to get rid of me. That's part of the trust. And then to trust the process itself will just take some time and wins and stories that you can tell that show how it made a difference, a positive difference for your customers and for your employees.
All right, guys, any other questions? Otherwise, we can give you guys 2 minutes back, but please do check out the materials that Matthew had shared. Join us on Thursday if that's of interest. We go into this content in a lot more detail. And if you have any questions or think of anything, you can always add us on LinkedIn. But have a great rest of your day.